Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are working on the birth of Merlin, and today we get to hear from Modesta in Act 3, Scene 2. Yesterday we just finished up with Act 2, so we've got a couple of scenes that we need to cover here, so buckle up here, we're gonna get going. So Aurelius has married Artesia, and everybody thinks it's a terrible idea, including the hermit, who had a little bit of a magic battle, and then Arthur comes back to court and he sees Artesia, and that's the woman that he fell in love with, and she flirts with him a little bit, and then she leaves, but then she sends a token back to him, so he's like, does she actually love me, or is she maybe plotting something? I'm going to try to figure out what's going on there. So that's how Act 2 ended. At the top of Act 3, Scene 1, we're back with Joan and the clown, and you remember Joan is hugely pregnant, and they're running around trying to find the father of the baby because she doesn't know who he was. She didn't bother to ask his name, but she kind of knows what he looks like. So they've exhausted the forest. They've walked around the entire forest. In Act 3, Scene 1, they're now at court, wandering around trying to find the father of the baby and getting a little disheartened that they haven't found him yet. But then Donabert and Edwin and Cawdor walk in, and they have a quick little, it's Constantinia's wedding day today, so go get Modesta too so that she can marry Edwin and tell her, like, this is just going to happen because, she promised that she would. Even though we know that Modesta is now leading a spiritual life and doesn't want to get married. So as Edwin is leaving, the clown and Joan stop him and they're like, "Are you the father of the baby?" And he's like, "No, you're cracked," and he leaves. But then Sir Nicodemus Nothing comes in, and he happens to be a lawyer, and they go up to him and they're like, "Are you perchance the father of this baby?" And he's like, wait, explain to me what's happening here. So there's a lot of back and forth between the clown and Joan and Sir Nicodemus Nothing about like how usually there's a father and then there's a baby. It doesn't normally happen that there's a baby first and then you got to find the father after. But Nicodemus is like, if you pay me a fee, I can give you some legal advice on how to handle this. So the clown hands over like all of the money that he has because he wants to find the father. And Nicodemus is like, just find a guy and say that that's the father. And then he's not going to have any sort of legal recourse. He's going to be held responsible. I can be your lawyer. I can let him hold up so that he has to marry you. So just pick somebody, and there's not going to be any way that they can prove whether or not he's actually the father of the baby. So they're like, "Oh, that's great advice. That's great advice. You're a man. We say it's you." And Sir Nicodemus is like, yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that's pretty much exactly how you do it. So just bring me a man. And they're like, no, it's you. We charge you with being the father of this baby. And he's like, yeah, no, that doesn't work that way. And they're like, well, okay, then we want our money back. And he's like, no. You paid me for my advice, so I'm keeping the money. And so long, if you can happen to find a man that you can convince that he's the father, let me know and I'll help you figure out the legal bit. And he leaves. And the clown is really frustrated at this point, and he threatens to leave Joan, and she's like, "You can't leave me, I need your help." At which moment, the devil walks in, and Joan is like, "That's him! That's my friend! That's the man who did this! Can't you see him?" And the devil has a cute little thing where he's like, "Hi, yeah, just look at her. She's pregnant. Her baby's going to become famous someday." And he leaves. And as he's leaving, Joan is like, "Look, he's leaving and he's beckoning me to come with." And the clown is like, "Who?" So we get the idea that the devil has been appearing to Joan and impregnated Joan, but he's not visible necessarily to anyone or everyone else. So, dun da da, the plot thickens. Joan is pregnant with the devil's baby. She goes off to follow after the devil and try to hold on to him this time. And the clown, his last line in Act 3, Scene 1, as he's leaving, he's like, "My sister would run after the devil to find a father for this baby." So, and so he then leaves and goes after her. So now in Act 3, Scene 2, which is where today's monologue comes from, you remember we had Donabert telling Cawdor and Edwin to go get Modesta because it's wedding day. Well, we start out with the hermit and Modesta, and he's like, "You've been learning really well." And she's like, "I'm ready to take my vow right now. I vow that I will lead a holy life for the rest of my life." At which point Edwin is coming in and he's like, "Wait a second. you said that you were gonna marry me. Like, what, how are you giving this vow when you're supposed to be giving that vow? And she's like, I don't want to get married. That's not in the cards for me. I want to lead the spiritual life. So Cador and Donibert and Constantania also then come into the scene, and Constantania is like dressed ready to get married because today's her wedding day and the two couples are supposed to be getting married at the same time. And all of them are like, you know, she made this vow that she's supposed to get married. We need to convince her that she's supposed to get married. And she's very much standing her ground, and the hermit has her back. And they're like, well, maybe if we have Constantania talk to her, then she'll see some reason, because it'll be like woman to woman. They can have this. So Constantania goes over to Modesta and she's like, you know, you said that you were going to marry him. Why are you so against this kind of life? And Modesta says, because I know I cannot fly from death. Oh, my good sister, I beseech you, hear me. This world is but a mask, catching weak eyes with what is not ourselves but our disguise. A vizard that falls off the dance being done and leaves death's glass for all to look upon. Our best happiness here lasts but a night, whose burning tapers makes false wear seem right. Who knows not this, and will not now provide some better shift before his shame be spied, and knowing this vain world at last will leave him, shake off these robes that help but to deceive him. So what she's saying is, life is short, and any happiness we find here is fleeting, versus the afterlife where you can be happy forever. She's like, this is all fake. All of this stuff that we're doing, this world is just a blip on our spiritual journey. We have to come and exist here for a little while, and people buy into that, but that's because they're easily fooled, and I'm not fooled anymore. So I want to take off the mask of I'm going to be a proper wife and a proper mother and all that sort of thing, and lead an actual proper virtuous life so that I can have a happy eternity once I die, because I'm definitely going to die, and I would rather be happy for eternity than have some brief happiness here and risk going to hell. And Constantine is like, well, I can kind of see that, but like, what about motherhood? What about the joys of bringing a new life into this world? And Modesta responds, maybe not in so many words, by saying like, who wants to bring a kid into this kind of world? I would be bringing a child into this world knowing that it will suffer and knowing that it will also die. So like, you might be looking at the joys of motherhood, but there's a lot of sorrow and sadness and misery inherent in becoming a parent as well, because you know that all of the things that you are doomed to, your child is doomed to, and it's your fault that the child exists. So why would I want to do that? And Constantania is like, that actually makes a lot of sense. And you know what? I don't really want to get married anymore either. At which point Cador is like, wait a second. You like, we're about to get married like 10 minutes from now. You swore that you were going to marry me. He turns to the priest. He's like, priest, can't you do anything about this? She swore let's go ahead and just do the marriage. And the priest says it's against religious law to force somebody to get married who doesn't want to. I know, watching this or reading this in 2023, there's a lot of these arguments still happening, but to have the priest side with the woman's autonomy, it was radical for back then, and in some ways it's even radical now for the women to be able to have this sort of autonomy, to say, you know, no, I was engaged, but I don't want to be anymore, and I don't want to be a wife, and I don't want to be a mother. So Donibert is a little bit upset by this as well, because, you know, it's the passing on the generations, and he gets to live on through his children and all the stuff that Shakespeare's sonnets taught us about and all those sorts of things. But the two daughters go to him and they're like, Dad, we're pleading for our eternal souls. Can you please understand that and bless us with that? And he's like, you know what? You're my kids and I love you, so I'm behind it. So yeah, there's not going to be marriages happening now. My daughters can go and pursue their spiritual lives. So Very, very interesting turn of events. I think it's kind of fascinating that the typical trope of the lovers and things ending with marriages and happy endings. I mean, granted, we're only in Act 3, Scene 2, but it's been completely turned on its head in this play, and the women get to have a lot more power and a lot more agency, and even just the fact that they're having the discussion of women wanting more than to be wives and mothers, them wanting to be spiritual and be thoughtful and all of that, and the potential dread coming with parenthood. You know, not every woman these days wants to be a mother for many reasons, and lots of people are hesitant to bring children into this world in the state that it's in. So her even just saying, I don't want to bring a kid into this world just to watch it suffer and die as well, it's a lot, and it's a lot even to hear today. So kind of fascinated by this play, and I'm excited to see where else it's going to go. So come on back tomorrow for more, and we'll figure out, are there actually going to be weddings at the end of this play? We'll see. I'll see you tomorrow. Mwah.